And we're live here on this Thanksgiving Day. Today is, of course, November 26, 2020, and this is Red Banner Radio. I am your host, Anthony Messina, as usual. We are a few minutes late, and I do apologize for that, but we are here. Um, anyway, we had to take care of a few background things, had to run a few errands before we could get the show on the road for today. But tomorrow we will be back on right at 1 p.m. Per our usual schedule. But we will be doing a slightly shorter show today. We will be ending at 2 o'clock, so instead of the usual hour, you get about 45 minutes. But hey, it is what it is. We do have a few things I want to take care of. As always, you can find us on Twitter at Red Banner Radio. Also, our online internet stream is up and running, and we will put the podcast out later today as well, in case you missed the show. And also, the interesting thing about the podcast, I found out what we can do is this. Because I only have a free account and I can't afford to get a full account, basically, you're only able to get um, a basically today's episode and yesterday's episode are the only ones that are able to stay up. So if you missed yesterday's show, you can still listen to that today, but tomorrow you won't be able to hear that. You won't be able to hear Wednesday's show anymore. So you'll be able to hear today's show and tomorrow's show on Friday. It's kind of confusing, but that's how that works. Thanks, SoundCloud. But hey, if someone wants to donate and give us access to be able to afford to keep all of our shows up to date, that would be wonderful. But anyway, okay, so let's start off with the first story I wanted to talk about. This is going to us from People's City Council, Los Angeles. They are at People's City Council on Twitter, and I found this story this morning on my own personal Twitter. It's horrendous news. This was posted about 12 hours ago, and basically, Los Angeles has a terrible homeless, houseless crisis, but they also have, and this is where it gets interesting, they have thousands of empty homes, perfectly fine, livable homes that are just not owned by anyone. And I believe that those homes are owned by the state, but basically, a number of houseless people, mostly all families, have been moving into these homes so that they have a roof over their head, a place to stay at night, and I believe they also have water or electricity in the homes probably don't have electricity, but they probably have water. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not exactly sure. It's a very complicated situation, to be honest. But what happened last night, and this was filmed by People's City Council, or at least a member of the group, there was a whole protest out because um, the traffic police of LA County, CHP, California Highway Patrol, and also Los Angeles Police Department used a battering ram to break into a house or in order to violently drag out poor people out of their shelter. There was also a child that they hog-tied, and one of the pigs held the child by the feet, the other pig held her by her neck, and literally had her fucking hog tied and threw her out onto the front yard on the eve of Thanksgiving. A family that had no place to stay, and these fucking pigs, with your tax dollars, mind you, took it upon themselves to use a fucking battering ram for the crime of living with a roof over your head. And you're gonna still sit there and smile between your teeth and tell me we're the greatest nation on earth. Yeah, yeah. I bet these pigs really felt good about their job. Man, they're protecting and serving us. They're protecting and serving us by tossing out people with no other place to stay to keep you and your white family safe. Isn't that wonderful? Don't you feel great about this country? Don't you feel great that, oh, and not only that, but the Democratic Party, the party of the left in this country, oh, well, shit. Mayor Garcetti, the mayor of Los Angeles, he's a Democrat. The governor of California, he's a Democrat. And do they give a flying fuck about this? Not at all. No, 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 no. See, the way this works is if you're poor in this country, you're fucked. Right? And even though we have thousands of completely vacant homes in Los Angeles, well, the problem is, and this is what it really comes down to, is classism and racism. Because again, like I say on the show every day, they go hand in hand. And what it comes down to is that these homes are in rich white neighborhoods. And heaven forbid we have poor brown people or poor immigrants living amongst our nice white folk. That is what it comes down to. I guarantee you, if these were shitty, rundown slums, I highly doubt that the cops would be out there with a battering ram to send these people out. But since they're in nice, white, rich neighborhoods, oh fuck! Call the SWAT team on this family, completely unarmed with a young child, and they hogtied this child, and it's on video. It's not me making this up. In fact, I'll retweet it right now on our Twitter. If you're viewing live, you can check it out. Yeah, so it's up there now. And they hogtied this child, threw her out in the yard. There's people screaming and yelling at these fucking soulless pigs. And please explain to me what crime they're actually committing. Don't give me the bullshit. Well, it's not their house. It's not their house. No. Think a little bit. It's not that hard. Maybe it is for you. What crime are they actually committing? They're existing. They're breathing. They need a fucking place to stay the night so they can pick your fucking vegetables for today's holiday. Because you know that they're immigrants, and you know that. And it's in the video. What crime are they actually committing? They're committing the crime of being poor in America. They're committing the crime of taking back the property that their tax dollars go to pay for and say, yo, fuck it. I need to raise a family. I need a safe place for us to stay the night. We're going to live here, whether you fucking like it or not. So the crime really is of being poor. Not paying the fee, not paying the toll, the troll toll. That's what it comes down to. And if you still think that the police are actually there to protect your ass, they're not. They're there to protect the rich and the white. They're there to protect the capitalist class that continues to run this country into the ground. That's what the pigs are out there to protect. Not you, not me, the rich, the well to do, the property owners. Because property in this country is worth more than your life. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that wonderful? And so every single time you hear some dumbass conservative pundit saying that, oh, well, it's property, they're breaking, and not talking about this, you now know where their priorities lie. Not with the working class people who actually deserve these homes, but with those who've done fuck all to earn it. And yeah, I don't care. There is not a single argument you'll ever be to say to convince me that these people got what they had coming to them. Not a single fucking time will you convince me that property is worth more than a human being's life. Because it's not. It's just not. And these are the same Christians who believe that they're made in the image of God. But the property is worth more than supposedly the God's creation. Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? Huh. It almost seems like they're lying to you to protect their profits. But that would mean that they're the bad guys. You sense my sarcasm, I'm sure, and you sense genuinely the amount of uncontrollable rage I found when I found this video today. And I will say there's a content warning. It's hard to watch. It's absolutely harder to listen to. It's painful. It's painful. And the fact that, and I'll say this right now, I don't care how this comes across. You're not doing any good by just sitting there and yelling at these pigs. Okay? We need to come to a place in this country where we're either going to take direct physical action against these fucking pigs, ruining these people's perfectly innocent lives, or just admit that there's nothing we can really do. Because either we're going to actually break up what's going on there by any means necessary to protect that person's life, or just get out of the way. Or at the very least, thankfully, you videotaped it. That's a good thing. But then I ask, what would the Black Panthers do? I don't think that they'd just be sitting there and yelling. They would probably do what's necessary to save the lives that the pigs are now ruining. And I'm sure you can figure out what I mean. Because that's what it's going to come down to. I mean, put yourself, if you ever possibly could, in the shoes of that girl who was hogtied and tossed out on the yard. Like a fucking animal. Like a fucking animal. You'd want someone to take care of that fucking menace. You'd want someone to be there to actually save your life. Because now that person today, on Thanksgiving, when most of this country's just going about, haha, yeah, I know it's COVID, oh, that's we are, man. I can't believe I can't get to see my family. Well, now imagine that you and your family are fucking homeless because you just got tossed out on the yard last night like animals. And no one's going to do fuck all about it. This country is an absolute joke. It's absolutely evil what we let happen. And the fact that you had a bunch of self-righteous scum telling you and me saying that the Democrats are the good guys here, saying that the Democrats really have your best interests in mind. That, oh, it's all going to go back to normal now that Biden's in office. Oh, you know what normal is? This. Normal is endless wars. Normal is decreasing wages and longer hours. Normal is ICE deporting perfectly innocent human beings. That's what normal is. But for your self-righteous white suburban wine moms or your the city liberals who constantly live on a diet of Starbucks every day, they're surrounded by gentrification and they couldn't give a no, they might put a Black Lives Matter sticker on their Instagram or something like that, or feel and then go ahead and feel that they've really been a revolutionary. Meanwhile, they'll walk past ICE deporting immigrants or police evicting these people who are just trying to exist and have a roof over their head and say, well, they should apply to, they should get a job, or they should have, whatever excuse they could possibly come up with. I can't even create an excuse for this, but I know that these fucking assholes could. So Yeah, what I would say today is if you are like me, and you probably are, that you have a roof over your head and you have a bed to go into at night, be thankful for that. Be thankful for the fact, especially for someone like myself with my color of skin, be thankful for the fact that the police generally leave me alone. Be thankful for the fact that I have a bed to go to at night and I have clean water and food. In a few hours, I'm going to have a large meal that was picked by these very people who get tossed out of their homes at night simply for the crime of just trying to have a place to stay. We can afford to change this in this country. We have the largest bloated military budget in the world that we only use to continue to ruin lives of innocent people in the Middle East simply because they have names we can't pronounce or different religions than ours, and quite honestly, comes down to what's underneath their feet in the ground: oil. We can change this over fucking night if we want to. If we had a government that wanted to, that could cut the military budget not even in half, but just a quarter of that would change things drastically. But then could you imagine if we cut that by half? What we could use that money, that we can house all of the houseless people in this country. We can fix our rotting infrastructure and ensure everyone, no matter where they are in this country, no matter who they are, has access to clean water and good food. And that we wouldn't have a single person in this country sleeping on a street corner at night. Not a single one. We could do it if we wanted to. But our priorities, because of capitalism, is not for the betterment of society, but for the fattening of the pockets of the pricks who destroy this world simply to increase their profits. Because they're fucking greedy, they're fucking evil, and the only thing that they deserve is death. That's it. I don't care how that comes across. They don't deserve to exist. They don't. For a minute. Their lives are worth nothing compared to the people who pick their fucking food. And yeah, I know I'm angry, but it's a righteous anger, in my opinion, because it's inexcusable, man. It's completely inexcusable. And what pisses me off more and more each day is this myth that so many millions of half of these very good, I'm sure more than half, are very good, well-meaning people who continue to believe this fucking myth, this lie of American exceptionalism. I don't know how you can still believe that. How effective that propaganda is what I say. That's how good that propaganda is. That they can somehow reconcile video like this if it ever even comes. And that's the thing. Video like this will never come across their Fox News screens or their One American News screens or their Newsmax screens. It'll never be shared on Parler. So they'll continue to live in a bubble. And media like this, of these cops pointing fucking loaded machine guns at these unarmed, innocent children in this house, committing the crime of being poor and brown in America. And even if they did see it, you know for a fucking fact that they'd support the pigs because Blue Lives Matter. And, especially most of them are very racist. And they would probably say, yeah, they didn't really do anything wrong, but they're Mexican. Who cares, right? That's what they would say. That's what they would say. That's what most of the 73 million who voted for Trump would say. And a good portion of the 80 million who voted for Biden too. And don't get that wrong. And again, don't get it mixed. There is a huge amount of open racism on the right, but there's an even larger amount of closeted racism on the supposed left in what I would call simply the Democratic Party. Remember, Biden, the now president elect, was the same Biden who said, "You ain't black if you don't vote for me." So you know where his priorities are at. Um. So yeah, I shared that. I retweeted that on our Twitter profile or Twitter page, whatever the hell you want to call it. Which again is at Red Banner Radio. Give us a follow. We can probably get to 10 if we do soon. Um, um, yeah. So anyway, I wish that I could have more uplifting news for you. Sometimes I wish that I could. You know, one of the biggest goals I want from this radio show, podcast, YouTube stream. I don't know what you really want to call it, but one of it is inspiring some hope to the socialist struggle in America. Because also, by the way, I wanted to peek. I mean, I guess since it's flipped on YouTube, I wonder if there's a way that you could flip the screen so the text would be so legible. But this is actually something I got from the Party for Socialism and Liberation. I highly, highly, highly encourage you to give them a follow on Twitter at PSL Web, and also try to join the party. And also look for your local chapter of the PSL. Around here, there's the Philly PSL. I know that there's New York City. I also think there's more local. I think there's like a Brooklyn PSL, Bronx PSL. They have chapters in all the major cities, I'm sure. And also, I would highly encourage you. And I'm considering creating a South Jersey PSL. I'm very much so considering that. But um, I complete. If you're in an area that doesn't have a local chapter, reach out to the party, and I'm sure that they'd be more than willing to help you set up a local chapter. And they'd probably give you, I don't know, I'm not sure exactly if they, like give literature and merchandise and things like that. Um, but contact them and see if you want to do that. But yeah, I got this shirt because I'm a donor to the party, and it says. No revolution without women's liberation. So that's cool. I like the shirt. I was really hoping to get a PSL shirt one day, so I'm glad I eventually did. But yeah. So one of the things that I really want to be able to do is inspire hope, because there is a lot of there's a constantly permeating feeling of sort of a hopelessness, sort of like a just, well, it's just impossible. The struggle is too much. The enemies is everywhere. And when you see videos like this, it just makes you think, like, what the hell can we possibly do? Um, but there is a lot. There is a lot, and I it's getting more and more to the point each day where we're just going to have to take more and more direct action. That's really what it's going to come down to. Um, but reminder that direct action can take many different shapes and forms, um, and that's really kind of up to you. And that's the most important thing that we have to remember. And I was talking with my good friend and comrade Ben um, a few weeks ago, and he brought up a really interesting point. Um, and I think it's extremely true that when we look at past revolutions, um, a prime example is the October Revolution. Obviously, even though Russia is a huge country, most of the population lives in Moscow, or lives west of the Ural Mountains. So they didn't have, obviously, like in America we have 50 states, right? So we have so many different regions and different cultures and dialects and niches and all these different things that are done just differently in different parts of this country, and different circumstances too. So, like in Los Angeles, a houseless crisis, that's a huge, huge problem over there. Not so much as over here in my neck of the woods. I mean, Philadelphia has a problem um, with houseless individuals, but not to the extent that you see, that it is in Los Angeles. one of the biggest reasons it's like that in Los Angeles is because of the, I mean, absolutely skyrocketing um, price that it takes to live in Los Angeles and afford a home or even rent an apartment in Los Angeles is so expensive. Um, so the circumstances that the circumstances that the working class and oppressed people face in Los Angeles are vastly different than those that might over here in Philadelphia, and I'm sure that they're different in New York City, and that they're different in Kansas City or Dallas or Houston, Miami or Seattle. And so we have to have, I think, in my opinion, um, what we're going to see in this country, if we're going to see any amount of socialism really take hold to a meaningful extent, a measurable extent in this country, is a sort of conglomerate of localized different parties. And we're seeing that now, where we're seeing Philly, the Philly ABC um, is and also God, I forget their name, Camp Red Sleeves, I believe. Um, there are different houseless and working class organizations in Philadelphia, the Philly PSL being one of them. But something that they also have is the Philadelphia Liberation Center, which is obviously unique to Philadelphia. It's a building, it's amazing. It's a building in Kensington. Um, and if you know Philadelphia, you know Kensington's one of the uh, uh, worse off neighborhoods. Also dealing with a very, very nasty heroin epidemic, I believe. Um, but they have a Philadelphia Liberation Center, and it's basically a place for for PSL members, but also for members of the community in that area, where they can. I believe they have after school programs and they have summer camp programs. They pass out groceries completely free of charge to members of their community. They have reading nights and literature nights and book clubs and all these things. It's a community center. It's a socialist community center, and it is the best idea. That is the way that socialism will take off in this country. You have me completely convinced. Because what you need to do is, if you can go into your community, provide them with their basic needs, provide them with groceries, provide them with a place for their kids that they can feel safe taking their kids to, and that they'll be taken care of while the parents have to work after school or whatever it may be. If you can do that, if you can gain the trust of your community, provide them with food, with clothing, with shelter, with water, with a children's program, um, with summer camp programs, with literature programs like that, you win. You automatically win. Because if you're able to break the two party duopoly and say, hey, the Democrats aren't doing jack shit for you, the Republicans, I mean, don't even bring them up. So if you have the socialist program over here that's taking care of all your needs, they're going to vote for you in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat, because they say, well, I know these people. They're looking at their ballot, they see the PSL on there, they say, oh, I take my son to their after school program. Oh, they give me groceries on the weekend when I can't afford that. Oh, they help me pay my rent when I can't afford that. Of course I'm going to vote for them. You know them. You have a personal connection with them. And that is how socialism will win in this country. That is the, not necessarily the only way, but that is probably the most successful way in my opinion. Um, but it has to be localized. It has to be it has to be so community specific and so community driven, unlike in other cases. So let's talk about Vietnam then for a second, because that was a very successful socialist revolution. Not so successful that they beat us. They beat us, the imperialist invader. They sent us the fuck home. But the reason that that took off differently was because of, well, obviously, entirely different circumstances. The reason Ho Chi Minh and the Vietnamese Communist Party was able to be successful was because the circumstances were different. That poverty was so much more common across the entire country, and that the culture, I believe, in general, was just more connected. There wasn't quite as much differences in regions and dialects and way of doing things, for existence, way of living. that most people, the average Vietnamese person at the time, was probably a farmer, was probably poor to some extent. So they were able to be successful, but what they did um, was entirely unique to their region, was entirely unique to their struggle. And we have to do the same here. We cannot expect, and my good friend Ben, I hope to get him sometime on the program. He can explain it better than I can. He's a lot more active than I am. I look up to him and respect him immensely. Um, also reads a lot more theory than I do. I have such a horrible ADD. I just cannot focus for such a long time reading something, but I sure can talk. But basically, we cannot expect for one vanguard party, one national party representing the whole country, all 50 states, to rise up and take over like that. Not take over, but you know, um, to be able to lead the way. Because one national party with one central committee is not remotely going to be able to focus on all the specific needs of, like, let's say, one neighborhood in El Paso, or a couple blocks in Minneapolis, or a neighborhood in Philadelphia. How the hell do you expect one national party with a committee of, I don't know, maybe a couple dozen or maybe 100 people to represent the needs of all the working class and all the different regions and all the different dialects, all the different backgrounds and cultures and everything in this fucking country? It's not going to work like that. It's not. We're not going to have a revolution led by one single party. It's going to be a conglomerate of dozens, if not hundreds, of different organizations, different socialist ideologies. Some might be social democratic, some might be democratic socialist, some might be Marxist, some might be agrarian socialist. It doesn't matter. Whatever is successfully meeting the needs of the people in that area is what works. And as they say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And that's why I don't put as much emphasis on the names of the ideologies or the nitty gritty details of these different ideologies, because at the end of the day, that's not producing results. All right? What is producing results is going out there and doing the work, or at least talking about it, at least discussing it and explaining it, so you have some sort of blueprint on what to base your next program on in the coming, in the future. And that's why I always point to the Philly Liberation Center ran by the Philly PSL, because I think that they have the formula or the format or the idea down pat, and they know what they're doing. They also have gyms and workout programs for children and teaching, I believe, karate or some sort of self defense. I mean, it's incredible what they do. It's absolutely incredible, and it produces tangible results. If I keep banging on this laptop, I'm gonna break it. Um, ahem. So, um, that's why I put so much emphasis on that, and that's why, like I say on our Twitter, uniting the left, because the left in this country, we have an uphill battle. We're not the mainstream yet. We're not exactly in the. We're not exactly what they would call kitchen table or dinner table discussion in this country. We're not a household name yet. I think a lot. I mean, the Democratic Socialists of America, again with the flag behind me, they have over 250,000 followers on Twitter. But so they're probably the largest. They are, I believe, the largest socialist organization, the fastest growing socialist organization in this country, and I think that's great. And what I hate the most is that there is a sort of there is a sort of movement or a sort of frame of mind or sort of community within the socialists in this country that want to shit on them. And I say, that's cool. Tell me how many people are jumping to join you guys. Oh, well, we have. Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, the DSA has actually endorsed candidates that have won elections. Now, I know what you say, and believe me, I am right there with you. winning elections is a small part of what we need to do to actually be successful. And a lot of the people, when I can't say a lot, I don't know everyone that they've endorsed, but I know someone like um, Alexandria Ocasio Cortez was DSA endorsed, and she won in a landslide twice, for Christ's sake. But of course, there's a lot of issues with her. She supported Juan Guaido, the far right fascist puppet that we tried to install in Venezuela, but we were unsuccessful because they said, "Get the fuck out of here. We're going to do things our way." But she was seen smiling and taking pictures with him. So there's not, even if I say they win elections and whatnot, that doesn't mean that they're doing everything right. And quite honestly, I even though I have their flag, I do like the flag. I think it's a wonderful symbol of socialism in this country. So give me all the shit that you want for it. But like I say, I much more ardently support the PSL than I do these guys. Only because I think that the PSL is a lot more puts a lot more emphasis correctly on direct action, whereas the DSA, I think, well, the DSA aren't even a political party; they're an organization that endorses candidates. And the biggest problem I have with the DSA is that right there, they endorse Democrats. Run your own fucking candidates, why don't you? You have 350 something thousand followers on Twitter. You have the largest weight of the conversation in this country on the real left is on the DSA. You hear them mentioned a lot more on mainstream networks than you will the PSL. You could easily become an official political party tomorrow and start winning elections 2022. Easily they could do that. And I don't know why the hell they don't. I don't know why they don't at all. So yeah. Anyway, it is 1:50 here on November 26th, Thanksgiving 2020, and this is Red Banner Radio. I'm here with host Anthony Messina. We set up a Patreon down the road here, or some sort of donation site, so that we can afford again to really help out with building up our network, building up our equipment and our podcasting hosting so that we won't have to delete our former episodes just to have room. Of course, the final story here is about Thanksgiving and my thoughts on it. And there was also a thread on Twitter from Big Sister at Schultz. I'm not even going to bother pronouncing it. I'll retweet it on our page. Of course, with today being Thanksgiving, there's a lot to talk about. There's so much to unpack, and I don't really have a whole lot of time to do so. But I want to read you this thread and kind of let you know that this is what I've been thinking about recently. And yeah, I'll give you my take. Hello, settler allies. Today is a perfect day to redistribute your wealth and share your privileges with Native folks. This will serve as a thread of Native individuals and organizations you can give back to directly. Native relatives, I invite you to share your links and needs. And it's a long thread. Oh, there's Camp Red Sleeves. Oh, they're California. Well, maybe not based in California. I don't know. I think it might just be a national organization. I'm sorry. So there's a whole lot of threads on here, posts on here. My funds are super low and I have bills to pay and I need to feed myself, my partner, my dog. I'm a college student out of work because of COVID. Blackfoot eldest daughter here supporting her father through his job loss due to COVID and her mother in an elder care facility, late stage dementia and cancer. My God. I'm from Navajo Nation. I'm currently out of work for 2 weeks due to an injury, and I have 2 daughters I support. You would really be helping me out. PayPal.me/ASZAAD. Single mom here living in poverty on the Navajo reservation. I could really use some help with groceries and for my toddler. Uh, First Nations and Romani. I believe Romani is indigenous to Romania or that area. I think so, but don't quote me on that. I'm not certain. Blind with other disabilities and building a business as a freelancer, safe sex and relationship coach for LGBTQIA plus disability BDSM. Um, I'm a 23-year-old mix Potawatomi college student and beadwork artist whose work hours have been cut due to COVID-19. And so you see all of this here, disabled and displaced. How to now how to know Sony? I'm so sorry. A Lakota trans woman stuck in medical bill hell right now. Oh boy, yep, that's a story I hear 1,000 times over in this country. Medical bill debt, and this is something that we'll talk about tomorrow, Friday. Reminder that we're off on the weekends. We're live Monday through Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. But we'll talk about medical bill debt tomorrow because there's a story that came out recently about it. The amount of the total national medical bill debt is insane. It's over $1 trillion, and the student loan debt's even higher than that, which is insane. Um, so basically, yeah. But one of the most impoverished groups in this country are the Native Americans, the indigenous tribes. And that is because of, well, capitalism and because of white supremacy in this country, but also because if you look at the Native American reservations, I hate the fact that we call them reservations. What we need to do is, as beds are burning from Midnight Oil said, just give it back. Just give back their fucking land. Give back their land. They were here first. They have every single right to self governance, just that we do as well. Give back their land. It's that fucking simple. But we have the Native American reservations. And these are self governing areas, but are also um, fall under our jurisdiction. The laws are so fucking incredibly complicated and stupid. But basically, most of these Native American reservations are in very open areas, mostly in the Midwest and Southwest. The Navajo Nation being the largest. Um, and it is a nation. The Navajo Nation is its own nation, just as we are. And they feel the same way about their country as we do ours, that they want to protect it and that they own that land. There's actually a radio station out there. I would love to be able to talk more about KTNN 660 AM. So it's the last 50 kilowatt licensed radio station from the FCC. Meaning it's got a huge broadcasting area, and it has to because it covers. It's the voice of the Navajo Nation, TNN, KTNN, and they're the only radio station, or one of the only, that actually broadcast in their indigenous language, in the Navajo language, and it is beautifully interesting. They play country music as well, but they also play um, indigenous music like Navajo music, um, chants and songs and things of that nature. And it's so interesting to hear. It's hauntingly beautiful to hear on the radio as well. I remember when I was out west years ago, when I was about 16 or 17. Um, I'm also a huge radio, you know, um, radio nerd. I brought my radio out with me, and I was tuning into it at night and hearing this signal from a couple hundred miles away. They're based in like northeastern Arizona. I was in Colorado, and hearing this chant, this Native American song, um, coming through the airwaves, it was otherworldly. It was so cool. So basically, um, remember that the history of the Native Americans in this country is that of um, it's so multifaceted, um, because on the one hand you have their beautiful history, their culture, and everything about them is so it's as diverse as everyone else who's come here since then, of all the European immigrants and the African slaves that were forced over here, but they still maintained and brought their own unique cultures with them. So you have that going on, and you have the South Americans and Latin Americans, and um, everyone in the world is represented in this country in some degree, whether they came over here as slaves. Well, they didn't come over here. I hate saying that. Whether they were kidnapped and brought over here as slaves, or whether they came here on their own volition. And that's how as diverse as the Native Americans are. I know for a fact where I live here in New Jersey, I live on Lenai Lenape land. Um, and the South Jersey tribe, I believe they also extend to parts of Delaware and PA and North Jersey. I'm not too certain about that though. But yeah. And so remember that when you're eating today. And the thing is this, it's not meant to shame you for celebrating with your family and remembering what you're thankful for. And it's not meant to shame you for enjoying a Thanksgiving meal. I'm going to in a few hours enjoy a Thanksgiving meal. And I'm perfectly fine with remembering what I'm thankful, but most importantly, grateful for. It's not thankful. It's grateful. It's gratitude. It's gratitude. Gratitude is like a tip. But anyway, that's all it is. And I'm sure most of the listeners of the show are intelligent enough to understand that decolonization of your thought and of remembering. Oh, that's what that does. Okay, sorry about that. Anyway, so when you're having Thanksgiving later today, remember what land you're actually living on. Remember what they went through and the genocide we committed against them. But remember that there are so many things that you can do to give back and donate to various Native Americans today and Native American charities, and just learn a little bit. So you can simply just pick up a book and read more about this tribe's culture or that tribe's culture or this tribe's history and where they lived. Um, and that's a very good way to start going down that road, and that builds socialism, that builds a sense of community, and that at the end of the day defeats the American imperialist um, uh, class that is trying to keep everyone else separated. And learn more that working class people have a lot more in common that we do than we do with white capitalists and white rich capitalists. Anyway, that is your Thanksgiving edition of Red Banner Radio. We'll be back on tomorrow right at 1 o'clock for a full 1 hour edition of the show. This will be up later today for you to watch, and we'll also have the podcast edition of it out on Spotify later today as well. Um, Remember to be thankful and enjoy the rest of your Thanksgiving. We'll be back live tomorrow for your Friday, and we'll talk about Black Friday tomorrow. Till then, take care.